You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another podcast. Yes, we have time enough to podcast, and that is where you are now, going through anthology series such as the Twilight Zone and probably something else down the line. But we are at square one and wondering, where is everybody? This is Matt here. With
Andrew.
me is that's Andrew there. I guess
Cutting
you'll be
you
around
off.
for a few of these. Cut me off. That's right. Because that doesn't happen in this first episode with a very small cast. I guess this is our first run, right? So I should spit out a few trivia tidbits, I suppose.
All right.
We only have, of course, this as most of the early seasons are. This is written by Rod Serling. I think the first season basically has 3 writers, creator of the show. Our main actor is Earl Holloman, born September 11th, 1928. Nice auspicious date there. Surprising, when I looked up, he's still kicking. The guy is alive.
Wow.
Yeah. So what is he now? 97? That's so good for him. Anyway, he appeared in a lot of 1950s, 1960s westerns and was a regular on the TV show Policewoman. And he was the son-in-law of Rock Hudson's character in Giant. You'll note that there's a prominent Rock Hudson marquee displayed later on in this very episode.
Yep.
The director is Robert Stevens, who directed many anthology shows, including Alfred Hitchcock Presents. So I guess he was, just get a nice hired hand for your pilot, right?
Oh, yeah.
So in this one, I guess we're not going to quite go with a straight summary or anything. So hold on, we're winging it. We're doing this for the first time. Share screen. I'm going to throw the whiteboard on the screen. Do you see it coming? There it is.
I am viewing.
Okay. And I'm giving you the intro to read. There we go. You can read it however you want to. You can do your Rod Serling impression. You can.
I was gonna say I've played Rod Serling on stage one time. I haven't brushed up, but I think I've seen enough Twilight Zone for my entire life to give it a go. So
okay, I'll even take Goofy. I don't care. That's kind of the thing I'm working on here. Is let's see what the guest does. So you're the guest.
Oh, okay.
Well, you're actually the regular, aren't you? But let's see what you do with this one.
In the barrier of loneliness, the palpable, desperate need of the human animal to be with his fellow man. Up there in the vastness of space, in the void that is the sky, up there is an enemy known as isolation. It sits there in the stars, waiting with the patience of eons, forever waiting in the ding-dang Twilight Zone.
So how are people with your Rod Serling impression on stage? Did you do that one?
I did not do that one. That was an exclusive.
Yeah.
No, I was the ghost of Rod Serling. So I had a fake cigarette that burned, I had the suit. Then, of course, I was made up of ghostly pallor. And so, I was a co-host of that night's festivities, along with someone named Misty Tetons. It was a Twilight Zone themed burlesque performance.
Was Misty Tetons a ghost as well?
No, Misty Tetons was just, very nervous about doing improv with me.
As far as getting into the episode here, I guess this is we'll see this throughout the first season. We don't have the iconic theme if you're watching this out of syndication and it's original form, but you have how are you watching these, by the way?
I have the Blu-ray.
Okay, yeah, because those have the originals. So we have like a Bernard Herrmann intro,
yes,
which is very cool. I like it. I mean, it's not the one we all know, but
No, the Herman one I think only was around for maybe about, I don't know, the first maybe 10 or so. You don't get the first one is just, I don't know, if you're looking for what would be like proper Twilight Zone, I don't even know if season 1 would be, because it's got a lot of classic episodes, but it's not in terms of the intro. you don't have Rod there introduced. He doesn't even show up on camera until season 2.
Right. Well, he shows up for the bumpers at the end and hawking cigarettes.
Yeah, well, it was a little ironic there. No, from what I've read, that he wasn't very comfortable being filmed. Like they had to really kind of gnaw at him to do it. And I think even with the narration, he didn't intend on doing that either. It was more of just like they couldn't afford Orson Welles, which is I think who they wanted.
Yeah, that's not who they needed though, is it? It's kind of like, how Jimi Hendrix didn't want to sing, but it's like,
Yeah.
Jimmy, just sing. Just do it, man.
Yeah, I think everyone was really keen on the idea of Orson Welles, but Sterling didn't want it, and then didn't want anybody. I think they had some really pompous sounding people, and he finally was just like, just let me do it. I'll,
But
get over it.
he is the narrator now for like any situation almost. So
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, even more than Orson Welles, because Orson Welles is your Unicron, right? He's the
He is.
transformer
That's
planet that
true.
eats other transformers or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's for real what I think of when I think of Orson Welles. Even though you and I saw a screening of Kane together, I think at one point when you were in Athens, and yeah, that didn't sway me. He's just going to be Unicron. That's just how it shakes out.
Unicron and the guy that seems like his wife just left him in the Future Shock documentary.
Oh, that's true. And okay, and one other thing. No, I think of Vincent D'Onofrio. I'm not even I'm not even thinking because of Ed Wood, where he,
Yeah.
has
Oh, right. You're thinking of that. Okay. So, fortunately, in this episode of Twilight Zone, we get a man who loves to talk to himself because that's all we're getting. Plunged
Yeah.
onto a street in the middle of nowhere. What is the thing in Inception? If you don't remember how you got there, you can probably call it a dream. It's a good chance it's a dream.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing about stuff like this is if you're familiar with Twilight Zone and you watch Where Is Everybody, they do this a lot. It's the white guy by himself who thinks he's going crazy.
That's the 50s, right? That's how the 50s work.
That's pretty much it. And so,
Your wife is
so
in the
you
next
have
room with a bottle of wine or two,
yeah.
not talking to you.
I get this one because I came to know Twilight Zone very out of order because I would just watch the New Year's marathons with my dad. And so I had no concept of like, season 1 and watching it. Like it wasn't until my adult life where the box sets came out where I was able to actually watch them in order. And so this to me really kind of blends together with a lot of the plots of the other ones for me,
Well, yeah, it's almost like this is a standard sort of plot, I mean,
Yeah.
it is the pilot. It's done arguably better, well, probably better in later episodes.
Oh yeah, definitely, because the ending of this one is really not even it's not even up to snuff, I don't think, for what would be a proper Twilight Zone. You're like, it's too spelled out for you, I think.
I might throw a wrench into that at the end, but yeah, it is a little spelled out. So, well, maybe you've seen my notes already, so you know where I'm getting with it.
I did. Yes.
Like, I mean, they talk about things that kind of like, oh, Hollywood showing you thing. It's like no, someone heard a story and then heard a story from someone else, and it kind of ends up in your script or in your movie. And I'm assuming that's kind of because it's like the Air Force, or they're doing weird experiments right now. There are like multiple year Air Force spacecraft in the air. You see the news sometimes. It's like, hey, this plane just landed and it's been in space for like 5 years. I mean, that's like, and it's usually five headlines down, but
yeah. And I think if I remember correctly for this one, Serling was he was aware of those stories about people doing isolation training for space, and I think he may have just been walking around because these were shot at the Universal backlot, I think, and he was just walking around there one time when nobody was working, and it just felt like an alone guy. Like he got this weird feeling, and so I think those two things combined are what inspired him to write this.
That's one of the things with these shows, I think. Like you said, they often don't spell things out. because now you're supposed to get like a puzzle box, right?
Yeah.
Where everything fits together. Where Twilight Zones, have funky, fuzzy edges that don't make
Well, they
sense.
invented that. I
Yeah,
mean, this is the template. What you're watching here when you watch Twilight Zone, you're watching the template.
right, right. Oh, the other thing that crossed my mind, I just saw a few weeks ago the shot of, I think it was somewhere in the States. It was like, these people are going to test out how a Mars mission would go, and they're going to be in one of those isolated domes, right? And it's
Yeah.
there's this dude surrounded by three ladies. I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen there?
God. I saw some documentary
I think
about,
they were all PhDs, to be fair, but
I mean, it it's weird. I think that Stockholm thing, I think that was all sort of like a very made up and not real thing. It's more of just gross. It's more of just horrible. So we'll see how that shakes out, I guess.
in terms of this, though, it's not just the dude walking around by himself, but with very, very little memory. Obviously, he has language. He has he knows pop culture references, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
knows
no,
how to work things.
well, it's neat because Serling does that thing that he does so well. It's he's making you sort of identify with the person and making them likable and almost fun to watch, so you don't start thinking anything else. But it is impossible to watch this as someone who's, I came into Twilight Zone as a kid, at least, like, along with things that were influenced by it. So I just sit and think, I can't put myself in the headspace of someone who's seeing this for the first time. And the only people that are going to really get it are sci-fi readers, you know?
Yeah, this is in a niche, and just for people wondering, at some point, of course, we're going to get our eyes on the Jordan Peele one. I just want to start with at the start.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But there is I guess there is a recurrence of this kind of vibe again. Like it has peak TV peaked already here in 2021.
I mean, I'm not a TV watcher. The reason why I love Twilight Zone is because you don't have recurring characters. You don't have a plot that goes on over time. You've got this very economic, I wouldn't use the word utilitarian, but the word could be used, I guess. They are just compressed storytelling. It's like, it's masterful. I'm a fan of sketch comedy. I'm a fan of music videos, fan of short films, a maker of short films. So I eat up the Twilight Zone. They're perfect to me. They are.
Oh yeah, one thing I don't really plan on doing for this podcast much is sitting there talking about the quality of the thing. It's always, maybe the script wasn't the best, but as far as like how the thing was made, that it was pretty top notch across the board.
Yeah, yeah. Because not only do you have that Bernard Herrmann music, but you've also then got some really wonderful cinematography in this as well.
Yeah, it's real good looking. I guess I should talk about you were talking about your midnight or your New Year's marathons, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I caught them on TV when I was a kid here and there, but I got maybe about 12 discs, early DVDs. When you play them now, they're just like super lame looking. I mean,
Right.
the menus are ridiculous, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think I had about 50 episodes on those. So that's like a third of the show, but that's the only third of the show I've seen for like the past 20 years.
Really?
Yeah. And
Oh,
I had my holiday in August, and it was just my holiday. So I was having my where's everybody moment up at the mountain house. And I get there and there's a giant hole in the living room. Like, it's an old Japanese tatami room. And that area of the floor had been kind of squishy for years, because that's where the fire pit used to be like 100
sure.
years ago, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it broke or something. So there's a giant, that whole section of the floor is taken out. There's like dirt and rock underneath, a couple shovels sticking out. And I'm there by myself, and I start putting on Twilight Zones and like eating dinner by like the hole in the living room. So I was like, that's a good way
I
to.
mean, that's like triple down. I don't know, because Twilight Zone. My thing with it now is that I mean, I definitely will put it on New Year's just for the day, but once a year I go through the whole run, like every season, and sometimes I put on Night Gallery like after, but I love going through the entire run of Twilight Zone.
Yeah, well, I'm taking for a slow crawl through this one, but um excuse me, I just cleared my throat into the mic. You shouldn't do that. But yeah. So moving on with the story a little bit here. I don't want to make this like a step through step, but it's kind of hard not to talk about this one because he makes his way to town, which I guess the creep factor here is obviously somebody's doing something in this mind town of his. So,
Yeah.
someone has put the coffee on, someone has turned on the movie projector, all these sorts of things.
Yeah, and those are the times when, he really thinks someone might be there. And so the audience thinks he might be there too. The important thing to note is, the suspense works a couple of different ways, where either you know more than the character, and so you're like afraid for them, or you're right there with them experiencing it at the same time. And that's where the latter one is where they put you in here. And so I think there were thoughts originally of having like for example, when he's in the diner in the kitchen, when he's first trying to bark out his order, you see something kind of white moving back there, and they want you to think it's the cook, but really it's just an apron blowing in the wind. But they didn't want to, that was a little too ham-fisted, you know what I mean? And so they kind of nixed that. But I think for the most part it really works. He doesn't linger too long doing like the same things. He does sort of go through the town and kind of go through the motions of visiting kind of everywhere. So it does, it's not one of my favorite episodes. It spins its wheels, you know, but it's hard to say because it's the first of its kind. Like you said, they're all great, you know.
Yeah,
So when
yeah.
you're breaking new ground and making a template, you can't really say there are any missteps here.
I mean, how many pilots are like the best episode? I mean, there are a few where you would say yes, that is, but in general, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah, this it wasn't the first script or even the first filmed of the Twilight Zone, but it was the first actual episode to get produced. And so to that to that end, yeah, I can't sit there and talk too bad about. I do feel like this idea was done better later, but yeah, to be critical of it, it's just more of just like, okay, but this was inventing the best episodic or the best television ever done, I think.
Yeah.
And
Although
so, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, though, watching 2021, the answer to where is everybody's easy. They're at the Walmart because, your small town is dead.
Although I did, there is something interesting about the structure of it, and I know that Serling in the writing phase, or no, not in the writing phase, rather, like years after, like he wasn't a big fan of this one, but years after the fact, he was interviewed sometime in the 70s about this one, and he mentioned that how he would go back and rewrite it if he was, and how he thought about redoing it over the years in terms of what he would have actually done. You tell me if you think this is better or if you like it the way it is.
Did it get a
But he
night
was
gallery
gonna
monster?
that would be great. I'm a fan of Night Gallery, man. I like Ray Bradbury theater also, big fan of that. And Tales from the Dark Side. You could spend probably the rest of your life doing a series like this with me. So he was gonna have the guy go into the movie theater earlier, right? Stepping in there, like you were saying, he looks for the projectionist who's running this, right?
Right.
And so everything else kind of plays out after he gets in the seat, and the end of the episode is people carting him out of the theater, and he's still
Oh,
got like his ticket stub in his hand.
oh, okay. Well, that's a very different episode too, isn't
Yep.
it?
Yeah, but
So,
he said that's how he would do it because I mean, it's hard to say knowing his own criticisms of it. It's hard to like then not watch it with that sort of an eye, you know.
yeah.
Given that I do feel the ending is a little, it's about all people could really handle at the time.
Well, we got I guess he's in a vintage holodeck, more
Yeah,
or
it's a great
less.
way to put it. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, he's tripping out basically, which I guess is maybe what would happen in 2 weeks of isolation. Yeah.
it was. Yeah, yeah,
And like I said, I mean, there's the air force plane is landing unmanned. It's like, or might not be. I mean, they wouldn't like tell you like there's crazy people inside,
yeah.
people
No, true,
snapping
true.
inside. But
No, I like all the false hope that sort of comes in little bitty waves in this one too. So yeah, the structure of it I think is really sound. Like I said, the stuff about it spinning its wheels, I think it's only because I'm waiting for things that are in other episodes to happen. you
You're
know.
waiting for everything at once, basically.
Yeah, and so but that's just that's just sort of my palette or whatever. But I do, I'll never not wonder what it would have been like if Sterling had been able to do his revision.
Yeah, yeah.
It is
I
different.
I feel like there is a later episode. Well, like you said, I guess he used the basic concept a few times. So it's sort of like he like specifically didn't rewrite this one, but he
No.
certainly kind of made it again.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, without question. No, and I'm sure as you go through those, you'll be like, why this is a lot like where is everybody?
Yeah, yeah. But
So
I mean, it's I guess it's just a nice existential little you don't know who you are and you walk into a space with no people. That's life, man.
yeah, yeah. And plus, I mean, look, we're talking about it way longer than we typically talk about any film. And it's 2021, so that just shows you how great it still is, how well it holds up.
Right. Um, there is one thing. I guess it's near the end when he ends up going full bore through like a window, which
Uh-huh.
which seemed like a dumb move, but
More
um,
like something out of Groundhog Day at that point.
yeah, yeah, that would seem a little off just in tone, but it did make me think of all those restaurants where they use the mirrors to make the place look twice as big. Yeah.
It was, but you have to admit, a shocking moment when he just
Yes, yes,
literally
yes.
just slams into the mirror. I mean, I mean, and they're low tech. They were spending a lot, I guess, for the time on these episodes, but compared to what you'll spend on an average episode of TV now, it's nothing. You
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're using backlots, right? I doubt they built sets for this.
Yeah, yeah. And so, but the mirror gag is incredible, well photographed.
I mean, the final section where he comes out of the whatever, I was gonna say simulator, but it's not really, well, I guess it's kind of a simulator, but I mean that's
Yeah,
sound stage.
yeah, it is.
Our set is sound stage.
Yeah, he just kind of finally just falls completely apart, and he's pressing this walk button right at a crosswalk or an intersection, and he just keeps hitting it, and then you kind of see the real context of it, and he's hitting this, what would you call it, a panic button or just the I've had enough button in the isolation booth. But yeah, it totally looks like they didn't it was very sparse. it
How
was
did
it
he
was
eat in there?
oh don't do they explain, do they say that he's been being maintained somehow?
No, he just got like electrodes still on his head.
Okay.
So I mean, is there
Maybe,
like maybe they're shoving sandwiches under the door? I don't know.
I don't know. Are we
What's it
supposed to
smell
ask
like?
those questions? Is he sitting on a bucket? Is what I want to know.
Yeah. I was just reading about. Have you ever thought about what the Apollo mission smelled like?
It's crossed my mind a couple of times over the years.
Basically, they flew to the moon and back into like a flying latrine.
Yeah.
um, there's like at that point they didn't even have like they have like kind of somewhat hygienic space toilets now, I guess, but then it was like poop in a bag and hope it all gets in the bag. And I think it was Apollo 10 where the commander's like, oh, we got one floating through the cabin, or something. Like there was just a turd floating through the cabin. So
Yes, that's the one they leave out of the movies and dramatizations.
so anyone who's like, wouldn't it be amazing to have been one of the astronauts who landed on the moon? Maybe not for your nose. So
No,
and this guy's box must have, maybe they put some kitty litter all around the floor or something. That would be cool.
I seriously doubt it. I mean, I mean, it was just like opening that just was. I mean, he was just marinating in his own juices at that point.
Right, right. So that's an Air Force NASA thing to do, I guess.
Oh, it's
And,
absolutely no big deal to him, I'm sure.
and of course, they spelled out the end like, "Hey, this is one day we're gonna go to the moon," which sounds a little wacky now, but
Yeah, well, what
or
was
does it?
yeah, like 10 years before. Oh yeah,
They didn't have Stanley Kubrick to film it this time around. So.
no, but I've mentioned this before when talking to you and Luke about science fiction. There's really there's pre Star Wars and post Star Wars in terms of film, but I think in terms of television and literature and stuff, pre space program and post space program.
Yeah, yeah, pretty well. um, I think we've made it through this episode, kind of stumbling on it here and there.
Yeah.
He didn't get to read The Last Man on Earth. That was the weirdest thing. I thought that was going to go somewhere, but they have the entire book rack of The Last Man on Earth. I mean, I guess it's all dream imagery, so whatever. But
Yeah.
sorry, you're a little choppy there. Oh, maybe now you're back.
Me?
Okay. Yeah. My internet became unstable according to the big.
You want me to go out and come back in?
No, I think we're fine. So, but yeah, now once we know like this whole thing is like a construct of his mind, it's quite interesting. I had a few months ago, I had a dream. I was like at some kind of like seaside restaurant. I went lucid, and I guess I didn't misuse it. I would just start like exploring the details of everything in the dream. It's like, wow, how does that all come together? You know, like looking at the faucet and like how and the reflection on it. I'm like, oh, that's all being created in this dream. That's wild. Looking at the posters, you know, and realizing it kind of looks like Japanese, but it's actually symbols that don't particularly mean anything. Well, maybe they mean something heavy. I don't know, but
I've yet to have this experience.
oh, you have to work it out. It's pretty cool. It's one of the reasons I'm doing a podcast like this.
Sure. No, I think if I want to, watching Twilight Zone, I think brings me, pretty much out of the center of things. That's why I love it so much.
Right.
It really, I enjoy the space that it puts you in, but as an adult who's also someone that produces short form art, I'm just, it is a great. It's never not a good idea to watch the Twilight Zone.
Well, I guess we're at the point where you should tell folks about your own short form art.
That's right, man. We've made some Twilight Zone-ish stuff. On our latest DVD release, which you can purchase at gonzorific.com, gonzorific.com. We have a film called a release called Ariella Jones and the Home Video Vixens, and on this they're like mixtapes. We have one called The Last Person on Earth, and this is very much a sort of a Twilight Zone episode. I didn't direct it, but I wrote it, and I might also play a role in it. But it's a little bit of post-apocalyptic, gotcha, with a not necessarily a Twilight Zone style twist, but my own sort of B-movie twist. But it's the framework of a Twilight Zone episode.
And this is the first recording of a Time Enough podcast. We're under the umbrella of Podcastio Podcastius on Patreon. We also talk sci-fi films at Matt and Luke's Sci-Fi Sanctuary, and just weird ephemeral films on oral hygiene. Oral hygiene. Oral hygiene. That's a good name.
Hurling your hygiene.
Yeah, I missed an opportunity there. So and do look up Time Enough podcast. I'll be making the Twitter and the Facebook. Once you hear this, that should exist, but it does not at the moment. Oh no, I didn't think about how to go out either.
Uh-oh. Probably just dub in a fart.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You can't just like do one on command. I mean, like the proper noise.
Oh, I can do the noise.
Yeah, go for it.